Previously, I went
Yes.
to Johns Hopkins University for a lecture, and there's another speaker who is the head of AI advisor. 2024, early 2024, we were talking about April 2024. At that time, she already told me that it is proven that AI could fasten their drug development process, drug discovery process. Why is made in China so cheap? Made in China is cheap. Originally, I thought because the labor cost is low. Not only that, men used to be on war, now they're doing B2B sales. It is very brutal out there. A lot of things that we are going to mention today, you can also realize that, for example, in Hamza's report, he already mentioned the Portage forces for analyzing OpenAI as well, because this is the value chain of the company is extremely important when you analyze your competitors and your buyer power and your supplier power, etc. So last week, at the end of the class, we were talking about the criteria for competitive advantage. Who can tell me the 3 criteria for competitive advantage?
Must provide
It's like
value.
Must provide value.
rare in the market
You're unique in the market.
and hard to imitate or substitute.
Yes. But who are your competitors, right? Who are you competing when you talk about the competitive advantage? There is this competitive radar, which is a very helpful framework for you to analyze your competitors. The inner circle is your direct competitors. They have overlap with you on the product and the technology and the market that they're operating. And the more outer circles that they're going to, the more indirect they are as your competitors. A lot of companies just focus on their direct verticals, their product, the overlap products, right? But eventually, you want to look at the need that consumers have, the need that your customers have, and that's why you have indirect competitors. So for the inner circle, there are direct competitors with full product and market overlap and similar tech maturity. And for the second circle is the adjacent players who can pivot into your market zone. And the third circle is niche, regional, or earlier stage companies. And the fourth circle is the substitute or long-term potential threats. Let's say Figma. Figma as a company, the core threat might be like targeting the same market with similar tech maturity, right? So let's say maybe Photoshop or Canvas. These apps can also allow designers to design apps or design like posters. When we come to the second layer, near threat, adjacent players who can pivot into your market soon. Maybe we could talk about the apps that allow maybe product managers or designers to join wireframe, right? Low fidelity wireframe. And those could be developed into high fidelity designs one day. But right now, those startups or those companies are not doing so. And the third one, the niche, regional, or early stage companies, ChatGPT and DALL-E. Also, we have some other apps that could serve the same purpose, like the one that I just used to Photoshop my thumbnail, right? I didn't use like Figma or Canvas or any other like high level apps. It's just a Meitu app that I use for the thumbnail. Right, so those are like more niche and regional and early stage companies, like AI generated designs, right? Those are more early stage. Can they do high fidelity design? Not right now, but maybe one day they can, right? And the last one is substitutes or long-term potential threats. For example, a lot of really pro users, they just like they can use Draw or they can use like more basic software, but they can achieve pretty high performing art as well. So this is just an example of like multiple layers of the competitive radar. We talk a lot about social media last time as well. For example, YouTube Shorts, right? YouTube Short, the core threats might be Instagram Reels or TikTok, right? The near threat might be whatever like video format, kind of like media, right? You could talk about like streaming companies, where you could talk about like podcasts, like Spotify, which is also doing the videos of podcasts on their apps. And then the other layer, you could talk about niche or regional, like RedNote used to be very niche, but right now it is becoming bigger. Like Lemonade might be very early stage companies, and they're growing as well in the US market. And there are other regional apps, like I remember there's an app called Line in Korea and Japanese market, and they're indirect competitors as well, like substitute, then you can expand to more entertainment industry where you can use the same, like use different products to still entertain yourself. So this is the multiple layers of competitive radar.
What do you mean by long-term potential threats?
Keep an eye on the new technology because you are looking at very similar industry or like very similar product that you are targeting right now. But there might be new like formats or new innovation that will come out and substitute in the future.
For example, the OpenAI is already the most advanced company. Do they still have the long-term potential threats?
I think just depends on how long this company stay on this planet. I think eventually, yes.
Okay, so maybe in different stage, they can have only 3 of these threats or something.
I think the last one is always there. It just depends on whether our imagination get there or not.
Okay. But it's so hard to imagine.
Yeah, it is very hard to imagine. And that's why when I was doing my side project and approaching VCs and pitching my product, I realized it is really hard to live ahead of time. Like that is an ability and very experience-based ability. If you're working in venture capital and the daily job of yours is just talking with hundreds of thousands of startups, right? You kind of train yourself to think forward. Now it is your time to tell me how you think. What do you think about Waymo?
Should be like Tesla.
Oh, Tesla, direct competitor.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And their threat could be any kind of vehicle companies who has a plan to like include automatic driving. Peripheral threat should be like big automatic driving companies in other countries, like maybe Baidu in China or Xiaomi. And indirect, like the technology of artificial intelligence and like robotics or all kinds of like new technology things.
I think also like traditional taxi companies could also be like indirect because they're like substitutes, but they're not really in the same, like, well, no, they're in the exact same market. They're just not, autonomous. They're more traditional. So I don't know if that should be an indirect. Oh, they're not really adjacent because they can't really pivot into autonomous stuff. Yeah, so I'd say it's indirect, but they are, I think one of the biggest competitors in the industry, even though they don't use the same technology.
Yeah, I think when it comes to indirect, taxi definitely counts, and also other forms of transportation for sure. I'm very curious, actually, Yogesh, if you could tell us. I'm always very curious
Oh, the
if
tuk-tuk.
and how Waymo can go to India market because I feel like India traffic.
Actually, I
Yeah.
was going to tell that Tesla's new showroom is very near to my home, and I recently visited. And in India, I guess it's going to be very difficult to tap the market because we don't have traffic rules. And I don't know. And so, Indian vehicle, this market of this industry. This industry is always dominated by domestic players in India. Why? Because they only understand the context of the whole business around. So Uber didn't work out, Ola worked because they know what the driver wants, what the consumer wants. And yes, Tuk Tuk is being replaced by Ather. I would recommend everyone to read about Ather because they are doing a very phenomenal job replacing traditional tuk-tuks with electric vehicles. And this is going to be a phenomenal story coming out of from India. So
Can
please
you
keep
send
on.
the company name in the chat?
Yes, yes. Ather Industries. It is listed. It got listed few months back. And they are phenomenal. They're going after everyone.
Interesting. So they're doing electric vehicles.
Yeah, and they are not dominating it. Ola dominates Ather. Ola dominates India, but Ola is unable to keep up with the scale. Ather is moving like slowly, but they know what they are going after.
Anyone doing autonomous driving?
Not yet, but I guess if someone does, the first would be Acer. I'm very sure about it because I use it and I feel they have cracked the psychology of Indian consumer.
One of my Duke friends, he came from India, and I saw his video of showing around Indian traffic and how to navigate around. And there are a bunch of like I don't know what you guys call it, but like a cyclist. So
Yeah,
you sit
cycle.
behind that cyclist, and that is
Yes.
like they run like storm, like that's crazy. Like, yeah. So
Yeah, it is a big livelihood for almost so many people. You should visit once India to experience that.
I want to. I want to. I can imagine Waymo just like stopping there, not knowing where to go if they go to India market.
We don't have signals, we don't have traffic rules. I don't think so how it will operate.
Even right now in San Francisco, like people just bully Waymo so much because they know Waymo cannot hurt them. So even if it's not the pedestrian's turn, they will go across Waymo because they know Waymo is not gonna go if there is a passenger in front.
Oh, and the traffic cone thing, right? There were like random protests, and I think in San Francisco, I like
Oh,
researched this for class, and they'd put like a traffic cone on top of like a Waymo, and it
yeah.
would like assume that there was, something in front of it, and it would just stop, and they'd have to like deploy, your technician or engineer or whatever to like to fix the problem. They just have to remove a traffic cone. So, the 5-second effort of you putting a traffic cone on a Waymo car cost Waymo like an excessive amount of money for no reason.
Yeah. And we also have a culture of anytime when there is a protest, we burn away Waymo. So what about MetaQuest?
So for the core thread, I think a lot of like big tech company also are reaching and this kind of product like Apple Vision Pro. For the near thread, yeah, I cannot get a really specific example about the near thread. Some regional companies, I think different countries have like different like companies are researching such such products. Like I think in China, big companies like Xiaomi also doing similar things. Substitute or long-term potential threats. This kind of glasses also provide a way of entertainment. So a lot of like PS5 or similar game devices can be their threats.
It's a startup which does like athlete device, and they are doing a device that can be kind of transparent and like let the athletes see what about their heart rate and about like the route they're going to take in front of their like the bicycles or anything they are doing right now. So I'm considering like if they can do right here, they can actually AR thing and in terms of this. But I think it's not like as much competitive as Xiaomi, like the thing they have published.
So for blind people who are blind, there is
Yeah.
a company. There are various set of companies wherein if you wear their specs, it gives you voice input of what's happening in your surrounding constantly. So can it be an indirect threat for Meta if this companies pivot to for everyone?
Yeah, I think they could pivot. That is a very similar thing with Vision Pro, right? Apple Vision Pro, that they're kind of mimicking what you see outside and what you can hear. But it is a vision instead of like a real thing in front of you. So yeah, I think they could pivot, but and like what you said, right now they're not targeting.
Meta-driven smart glasses themselves can be a like long-term indirect competitors because if they want to advance or extend the current Ray-Ban glasses function, they can expand their like some features to make the screen like semi-transparent to show some information on the like the glasses, which can be part of the function of this current MetaQuest. So yeah, like self-competitive.
Like an all-in-one, like 10 years from now, MetaQuest and Ray-Bans, they have like the same tech and you could just use one for both.
I'm very curious how they would like segment the different user for these two products.
I feel like right now Ray-Ban functionality is so simple. It doesn't even like go to the area of AR yet, right? So definitely, I think the other competitors will catch up because Ray-Ban's functionality is simple, but it popularized way faster than the other devices. So that gives you a pretty good user base for you to add on additional functionality on top. But the other companies will suddenly be like, oh, actually, we can do a glass instead of a whole headset. So they have to, like what we discussed last time, that they have to have distinguishable features on top of Ray-Ban. And that's how they can be a more premium or just like make Ray-Ban the commodity, right? So yeah, I think there will be more players and more competitive in this game.
When it comes to like glasses, it also add a fashion layer. So I know Google is partnering with Jinto Master, and that's obviously like way cooler than Ray-Ban for Gen Z. So it's really interesting to see the competition go beyond tech.
My friend worked at Meta Ray-Ban as a product leader. And when I was talking with her about this, and she was like, Meta know nothing about fashion, but Ray-Ban knows how to do fashion part. So we just build the software for them. And I feel like when the market was saying that, oh, it's time for Google to bring back the Google glasses, and Google was like, I probably want to collaborate with a fashion brand to make myself fashionable as well. Because back then, when they first launched Google Glass, that is the right product, but in the too early of a market. Also because they have a tiny screen on top of their red eye. So every time when the user look at their screen, they were like, so you can tell that they're looking at the screen, which is a very awkward experience. Yeah, so I think definitely they're gonna improve how the user interact with the glasses and also how you can do AR better, Spotify.
Direct threats could be like Apple Music, YouTube Music, which is a thing. There was another thing people use all the time, SoundCloud. For adjacent players, Meta can do it with its new Ray-Ban glasses. They could have their own song music system instead of relying on Spotify. That's like native to Meta hardware. And indirect stuff would be watching a video. So I think the most adjacent players are kind of like Yogesh said, like social media companies.
Like in terms of core threats, of course, you're mainly talking about music here. There are like podcasts and also
yeah.
books right now. So they have way more competitors these days. And I feel like they are definitely screwing over Audible for sure. Yeah, Audible is at a very awkward position right now. And the other, I think, adjacent players, I think streaming companies will be interesting. Because streaming company, like it depends on whether they want to expand, and a lot of them are expanding. What we also discussed last time is original doing original content. They go to streaming, doing streaming. They go to original content. So having IP for the artist is very important for these type of companies, and they could have just like expand their verticals to go to music as well. For niche regional, there's one we use in China called QQ Music. And you can hear from the name that it comes from Tencent. And there's some other companies like NetEase. I think QQ Music, like the competition between these two companies is also very interesting. You can see how music softwares just buy the control of the artist. So back then, QQ Music was a very little branch within Tencent, and they bought the most famous artist in China, Jay Chou, all their records, and they have the power to play however they're like his music, and that is the decisive factor to win over NetEase. So it's very interesting industry. And in terms of indirect, yes, when it comes to like entertainment or social media, is also you're basically getting time from the consumer.
I want to say an interesting use case. So in tier 2 and tier 3 India, people cannot afford Spotify or YouTube Music. And I would really want to share this because this is a very interesting use case. Telecom companies, in order to have more app downloads in their app, and let people spend more time on their app and use their service, they incorporated music in their apps. So people in tier 2, tier 3 India use their telecom company's app, the SIM card company's app, to hear music for free.
Wait, is it like robust? Is it like are they nice applications?
They are not as nice, but they offer free music, and I've seen people use. So Wink Music is a telecom company, brand of telecom company, Airtel. I really love this use case. I guess very smart way to get people into our app.
GoPro.
I'm assuming there are a lot of direct competitors just because it's not that like they don't really have much of a moat. But in terms of like near threat and stuff, we could talk about, Ray-Bans and, other alternative, maybe AR, just like software and glasses type company. Indirect, cool ones. I know there are a bunch of like drone companies that are trying to do something similar, which is neat. And I kind of like that. I think it's really cool. Like you have a drone follow you around while you're doing a cool thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty amazed by the technology innovation in the drone industry. Back in the days when I was in college, that was almost 10 years ago, guys. And it is so hard to navigate a drone. And the drone is super big. I remember when I was shooting graduation video for my school, I need to carry that drone every day to climb up the mountain because my university is on the mountain. And nowadays, it's just like can fit in your pocket and it can follow you and it can have a longer range for batteries. It's, really crazy innovation there.
Have you ever seen a drone race? Those are always fun.
Yeah, it is very interesting. And also for the drone race, my understanding is a lot of players, they build drones themselves. So they like customize drones just for the race. That is a very like niche vertical of interest as well.
I want to add one company which I think could be in the middle of core threat and near threat. That's Insta360. Has anybody heard of it? Yes, they do panoramic cameras, and I think according to their financial report, they are selling really good overseas. It's established from China, but its core market is actually in overseas. Yes.
Yeah, they just had their IPO, right? Where did they go public? Do you know?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I'm a overseas user. Their product is really amazing. Their new, I forgot what is the Action 2, I think. That is their latest camera. It is magnetic. Their video quality is also very good. I went to Austin a couple months ago and I took my GoPro and Insta360 just to make sure that I have battery all the time and storage. And I barely even use my GoPro, and I could understand why GoPro's stock is so low. Duolingo.
So for the course, right, like Cambly or italki, and there's a lot of like English learning application in China. And for the nearest rides, I think there's a lot of like free lessons or systematic lessons like on YouTube. People can learn from that.
More core threats would be like Rosetta Stone, like Pimsleur. I don't know if that's a near threat or a core threat because they focus on like speaking. Versus I know Duolingo is more like learn your keywords, more reading, more understanding things rather than actually going and speaking. So Pimsleur's I think maybe a near threat, but you also talked about last time how Duolingo is just like learning stuff as well. And so the indirect could be like Khan Academy.
There's also an AI company startup called Speak. They're very interesting.
Oh, I saw that on LinkedIn.
Yeah, they're very interesting. So both of the founders are American and Harvard graduate, I remember. But they started their market from Korea because they realized in Korea they spent 1% of GDP in English learning. So that's why they were thinking if we could dominate the market that pay the most attention in learning English, we can expand to other markets as well. So they are very high penetration in Korea, Japan, and Taiwan. And now they're going back to the United States. They're like, we are back and compete with Duolingo. But nobody talk about Duolingo stock going down when GPT-5 come out. So are you guys AI native or not? Like nobody talk about those chatbots.
I was aware about it, but I felt that they are now moving into the education part, right? And they are also pivoting. So they will come back stronger.
They will come back stronger. It sounds more like a propaganda than a logical strategy. I think something I realize these days is the Duolingo CEO. He is a professor at CMU, and he usually just have very limited media attention. He is a very like down to the ground kind of person. He does interviews, but not like very like spammy marketing kind of person. But these days, he has a bunch of collaboration with content creators, which is interesting to promote Duolingo.
And they just collabed with like one of the largest coffee chain in China. Yeah, and speaking of AI, they actually I think they have a lot of like direct competitors when like large language models come out, and there were a lot of companies right now doing like AI AI language tutors, stuff like that. Because well, I haven't just entered that one, so.
Yeah, and Duolingo has a very unique company culture as well. It is not only their marketing has a very unique culture, their company culture is also interesting. They have a very strong A/B testing culture, and there is also a theory. They realize subscription or their user engagement increase with the level of the Duolingo's butt size increase. So, which is also very funny. The bigger the butt, the better the subscription. The last one, Anthropic.
You have like the obvious, like OpenAI, Gemini, or I guess Meta, Google. I don't know, Gemini's, yeah, Google. Adjacent players you can pivot into the market soon. I guess like a bunch of the hardware, like yeah, a bunch of the hardware companies can, that everyone uses for compute could just suddenly decide to do LLM stuff. So like if Nvidia was like, oh guys, guess what we're doing tomorrow? I guess they could enter that market. Niches, I'm assuming there are random startups in every single country that have better UX designed for their country. Indirect, everything that chat kind of replaces substitute wise. So like Google Translate, Google Search.
Instead of thinking forward, you're thinking backwards. And how do you find substitute?
Can Salesforce Einstein can be a near threat to Anthropic, or even Oracle, the companies which are coming up with their own chatbots. Not chatbots, means their own solution.
Why do you think they have the interest in that direction?
Because Anthropic is solving problems at every industry. Of course, now they are doubling down to code, helping developers more because they are seeing an increase in their revenue. Likewise, Salesforce Einstein, which I am got an experience recently, they are also doing great stuff in LLM. So I guess.
I guess, yeah, it depends on like how big the company is. I guess like if your company is big and you have a lot of proprietary data, then you can train a model yourself based on like a very raw foundational model. So yeah, a lot of companies are doing that. TikTok just launched their video model, I think this week. And there are also more niche like model startups like Midjourney, Luma, like all of those models are doing like models. So all of the companies are doing models. So yeah, it's a lot of threats. And also I think adjacent players can pivot into the market soon. A lot of general agents companies are doing their own models these days. And it is interesting that pretty much the whole agent like market agent companies are using the MCP protocol that is designed by Anthropic, but like all these people are trying to eat their market.
You guys talked about the code stuff. There's also like Cursor, because Cursor, Copilot, maybe also like you can say like lovable and all those vibe coding stuffs as well.
Well, now let's think bigger. Previously, we just focused on competitors, right? Now let's think bigger on the whole value chain. So the competitor, we're mostly talking about industry rivals. And some of it, when we talk about adjacent like competitors, that might be a threat of entrance, right? Or the indirect competitors can be a threat of substitutions. But if you look at the left and right side, supply power and buyer power is extremely important when it comes to how could you build your company moat. So first, we talk about threat of entry. New entrants bring new capabilities and want to grow. And market, for example, the customers often are receptive. And if a new entrant is diversifying into a market, they can share cost with their current markets. And threat of entry equals upper bound on profit potential. So to explain the 3 points, the first one, the customers are usually very open-minded to try new products. So when there is a new entrant coming in, they will try at least. Whether they will stay on the product or not depends, right? But they will at least try and can like test it out and stuff. And the second one, what do we mean by share cost with the current market? We talked about Tesla last time, that Tesla is not only trying to build an electric vehicle, they're trying to share their IP to like the whole industry making cars electric, right? If right now there's only one supply chain for Tesla to design the batteries, design whatever to build the electric vehicles, the cost of the whole market is pretty high, and it is all on Tesla. But if there are a bunch of companies doing so, then they can share the cost and share the risk on their suppliers. So that is diversifying into your market. They can share the cost with your current market as well. And threat of entry equals upper bound on profit potential. It's also interesting because as long as there is more squeezable margin that you are earning right now, there will be more competitors coming in and to share your margin. And you guys together will make the profit lower. And eventually, this is how the market works, will eventually benefit the consumer side by competition. But let's say if it is already very tough market, there will be very little threat of entry. For example, you barely hear that there is a local grocery store or whatever market is trying to have even lower price than Walmart, right? Because they already figure out the supply chain, they already figure out how they can put the price so low. The same thing with IKEA, right? Barely do companies compete with IKEA on the price of furniture because the upper bound on profit is not as high. So the counter to the threat is high entry barriers. And what define high entry barriers? There are multiple factors. The economies of scale, proprietary product differences, brand identity. For the class that we have last week for like the Chinese audience, all of the students there have weird admiration towards Apple as a brand. Okay, so that's the brand identity there. No matter how weird the product is from Apple these years, they still keep their admiration to Apple as a brand. That's the brand identity. And switching costs also matter. Capital requirements, for example, training like why we talk about DeepSeek, right? Why does the launch of DeepSeek is such a threat to OpenAI's model? Because previously, the whole market thought that you need a lot of that capital to train an AI model. But now it seems like someone is challenging this hypothesis. Also, access to distribution. Let's say you want to build a customized like cloud computing. Let's say you want to build on something on top of cloud computing, right? The current player, for example, Azure from Microsoft or AWS from Amazon, have way better access to distribution to the companies that they are serving cloud services to, right? So that is the barrier to entry as well. Absolute cost advantages, proprietary learning curve, access to necessary input, and priority low-cost product design, government policies. This is also what Hamza said when it comes to building moat for OpenAI, expected retaliation. The main threat is however you can make new entries harder. And this either take a lot of time or take a lot of money. I would want everybody to see brand identity as something that you need time to build. That's why we talk about AI startup don't have brand identity, but any other stuff either need capital or time. Substitute performs the same or similar functions differently, and non-consumption is always a substitute. So non-consumption is the consumers finally realize that, I don't need to buy you at all. That is also a substitute. And high threats of substitution is also the upper bound on profit potential. So again, as long as you have a high percentage of margin, then there will be other competitors coming in. This is the market effect to make sure that there is no monopoly earning a lot of money from the consumers. This is a healthy competition. And the counter to threat is differentiation. Threats from the substitute offering. The first one, relative price performance of substitute. Second one is switching cost. Third one is buyer propensity to substitute. So price is easier to understand if the users or like your target audience is very price sensitive, especially. And the second one, switching cost, is what you guys already mentioned previously. If you have an ecosystem, right, it is very hard for you to switch out. And the third one is the buyers just love you. The buyers love you or just love the substitute. Forget about Apple Intelligence, but let's say Apple just have a new foundational model come out, right? We will still try it out. We will still use it because Apple have the reputation. Even if the AI is not as good as we expected, we will still try it and see whether we will like it. And now we're talking about the value chain. This is something that I think is the most important thing of today's course. The powerful suppliers can charge more or limit quality or service or pass on cost to customers. And customers are unable to raise their price. And powerful suppliers also, upper bound on profit potential. And the counter to the power is diversified supplier community. So there are a lot of factors to define the supplier's power: differentiation of input, switching cost of suppliers and firms in the industry, presence of substitute input, supplier concentration, importance of volume to supplier, cost relative to total purchases in the industry, impact of input on cost or differentiation, threat of forward integration relative to the threat of backward integration by firms in the industry. You want to build a hardware product, but right now you only have the design. You only know what kind of product you want to build, right? And now you're thinking there are so many hardware, let's say smart home devices or whatever, right, in the US market already. You want to make the cost lower. Then what do? You go to made in China, right? Why is made in China so cheap? Made in China is cheap originally, I thought, because the labor cost is low. Not only that, so let's say right now you have a product design and you have a product direction to go. There are so many suppliers that you can choose from, and they put the cost so low for you to choose. Let's say right now you have a lot of buyer power. Your consumers buy your product, make a lot of consumers buy your product. You have a lot of power over your buyers, right? And now you want to put pressure on your supplier. Let's say, I don't really want just cheap products, right? Normal made in China cannot satisfy my need. I want to make sure that it is as cheap as possible so I can increase my margin. I also want to make sure that you have the best quality of product design and execution, and you can do it fast. I don't want to compete with other products or other competitors in the industry. When I want you to make my product, you make my product, right? Then your power can get you Foxconn, right? So they can provide a better service to you by, however, bullying their own employees or however to make your requirements happen. That's how they treat Apple. So the power is always dynamic, and it depends on a lot of your own factors, the industry, and the supplier buyer relationship.
Can you explain the importance of volume to supplier?
Yeah, so how much you buy from the supplier and relative to how much it sells to the industry. So let's say you buy 90% of the supply from the supplier, then you have a lot of power to negotiate with the supplier. So let's say you're building electric vehicle, and the battery is the major cost of your product, right? So your suppliers on battery might have a bigger negotiation power over you because they know they're important. But if you're only looking for like glasses on your cars, they probably don't have enough negotiation power because there will be more like substitute, and it is not as important to your industry than that supplier. How hardware companies treat their supplier is pretty bullish. And that's why if you're interviewing, let's say, a hardware product manager, a lot of skill set will emphasize on vendor management. So because if, let's say, you're not Apple, right? Like if you're Apple, then yes, you just like need to make sure that they don't leak your secrets and whatever, right? But let's say you are a mid-sized company or you are a startup, right? Your supplier might have a lot of demand from multiple companies. It is really hard for you to do quality control. I used to work for a startup called Wise. Later we will talk about that startup as well. They have this mission saying too good to be true. So they put their cost really low for the American market. They have suppliers in China, and I used to work on their smartwatch and pet tracker products. Executive of this company has to frequently travel to the factory to make sure the quality control and test out different products. Right? For a software company, usually you don't have that much hustle to do like quality control or vendor management, right? For Apple, they have a different issue. For Apple, there is confidentiality problem. So for a lot of people from Foxconn, you know that Apple working on different parts of the product don't know how the rest of the company is doing, right? They're very secretive in
Right.
what kind of product they're building. So for example, you're building the camera for iPhone, for the next generation of iPhone. You don't know how iPhone look, right? In general, you just know how the camera will be designed. And from Apple perspective, there's a list about the people working at Apple and the people from Foxconn. So if you reach a certain level at Foxconn, you will be on that list. And Apple will track you to know whether you're job searching, whether you're talking with our competitors, whether you are doing some weird stuff. So yeah, vendor management is a very interesting thing.
Interesting product management as a vendor man.
Yeah, a hardware product manager is very bullish. Like those
Crazy
people
pivot
are like,
opportunity.
what, Hamza?
I said crazy pivot opportunity. We could all become hardware PMs.
Yeah, I think hardware is going to be so popular in the next few years. I think software industry is too saturated right now. And hardware has a lot of opportunities. But yeah, just to give you an overlook of how a hardware product manager will look like. So you guys have to be tough to manage your vendors. Then we come to the power of buyers. Buyers is your customer and can force own prices or demand better quality or more services or threaten to switch suppliers. And again, the powerful buyer equals the upper bound of profitability. So you can see, right? If you're very profitable, there will be a lot of threats in the industry. If you're not very profitable, you won't have a lot of like substitute, new entries. People don't care about you that much. Your buyers will be like, oh, it's fine. You're already like very low price. Your supplier will be like, okay, it's probably not a lot of margin for me to negotiate. So the upper bound of profitability is the key. And the counter to the power is what we already talked about last time, differentiation, because that's how you can win your buyers over the other competitors. There's several bargaining leverages. The first one, buyer concentration versus firm concentration, buyer volume, buyer switching cost relative to firm switching cost, buyer information, ability to backwards integrate and substitute products, and prove through. We could also talk about price sensitivity here, the price or total purchase, product differences, brand identity, impact on quality and performance, buyer profit, and decision makers' incentives. So some of the industries might be more price sensitive, some of the industries might not. So it is very industry based. Talking about bargaining leverage, there is one point talking about buyer information. It's very interesting. So for example, back then before Amazon.com time, right, a lot of prices are not online. It's extremely hard for the buyer to compare prices. But now everything is online. They got more information, right? So then it just push all the companies trying to sell on Amazon.com to lower your price. For the price sensitivity, there's one point I want to point out, which is decision makers incentive. You have to know for your product, either it is enterprise product or a consumer product, who is the decision maker in this scenario, right? If you're targeting consumers, sometimes your end user is not your decision maker if you're targeting their kids. Because usually the decision maker, which is the economic buyer, is their parents. When you are targeting enterprises, it's extremely like that. So the decision in enterprise cases, a lot of times the decision maker is not even the same as the economic buyer, because the economic buyer is usually the CFO kind of position. The decision maker is the CEO kind of position if it is a very big product, let's say. And the end user is whoever audiences that you are targeting. So there are different people playing in different roles in the buying decision. And now talking about buying decision, it is also interesting to talk about the differences between enterprise products and consumer products. So for example, if you're doing an ad on Amazon, Amazon is able to tell you how effective the ad is in terms of how many people buy your product because of this ad, right? But if you're doing B2B marketing, it is extremely hard to tell you so because the decision-making timeline is extremely long. So if you're buying a consumer product, usually the time that you spend on decision-making is in terms of days or weeks, depends on how expensive the product is. If you are doing an enterprise product, usually the decision-making time is from 2 years to 5 years. So it is extremely hard in B2B marketing, B2B sales to do attribution. This is a very well-known industry challenge. Nowadays, if you use LinkedIn, the most active people on LinkedIn feed specifically are B2B marketers and B2B sales, right? I just proposed to my fiance, this is what I learned about B2B sales. This is a very well-known funny post on LinkedIn. This is like a vibe from content creators on LinkedIn, right? Why it is funny? Not because it is totally unrelated between the two things, and they're trying to just make a post on LinkedIn. Also, there are a lot of B2B sales on LinkedIn. And you can see their pain points very regularly. Attribution is one of them. When there is a deal made, it is very hard for you to tell whether it's the sales or the marketing.
I love those. Like my mom just died. This is what it taught me about B2B sales.
I love those too. There is a company, I think they are a startup. They call themselves B2B Growth Agency, and I think they are a company based in Europe. But I forgot which country is that. And they went viral. Probably you guys already saw their post on LinkedIn. They went viral at first by making a video to mock the Wolves of Wall Street.
Oh, I saw that where they like repeat the thing and they're talking about like yeah. I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. Do they also do I think other people are like replicating what they did, or I don't know if it
Yeah.
was the same people, but they're doing like other movies.
Yeah. They make more movies after that. That initial success is huge. And I vibe with that CEO so much. Yeah, I found that dude is just so funny. And I just comment on some of his videos and he added me on LinkedIn. And now that's like his contents are all the contents I have on my feed. I don't know how much you can relate to their videos. Their videos are definitely funny, but what they said in the B2B marketing industry is very on point. So for example, the Wolf of Wall Street, they're basically comparing how the old B2B marketers and the new B2B marketers are doing, right? So the old B2B marketers are telling their interns to send 2 posts per day on LinkedIn, right? One after breakfast and one after lunch. That is the traditional way of doing this because they just want leads. They don't care about the quality of leads. But then the new types of B2B marketing care about the quality of leads because they want to be the opinion leaders in their domain. And that's how you can have higher quality leads for the further conversion. Men used to be on Word, now they're doing B2B sales. It is very brutal out there. Do you know how many startups or mid-sized companies are there in the B2B marketing space? B2B marketing is not even as huge or as saturated as B2C market, but B2B market also have thousands of mid-sized companies. They do like a lot of random things. Within the whole pipeline of B2B marketing, there is always like every step, there are like tens and then hundreds of startups. As long as you have a certain relationship on yourself, then you have a market. Let's just use privacy in privacy domain as an example, right? We just talk about for the audience, what companies call it is audience network. Facebook call it Facebook audience network. LinkedIn call it LinkedIn audience network. You basically put your advertisement on the third parties, right? For this space, because there are more regulations coming out, there will be companies just saying, just thinking, the whole point of ATT or DMA is to prevent companies like Meta or LinkedIn to say, this person visiting New York Times right now is this person on my LinkedIn, right? The whole point of this regulation is we cannot directly use, let's say, device ID or whatever to do direct match, because from DMA perspective, from EU perspective, these are two businesses within a company. So we cannot utilize the identity system together, right? And now there's a startup thinking, what if there's a sandbox, right? So I can give you certain demographics or certain personas of this person, but I don't necessarily need to tell you who that person is in your database. So that is a valid business. There are tens of startups doing that. Consumer is like, if you don't have enough users in a short time period, you're dead. That's basically it. So it's very hard, it's very easy for you to decide, oh, whether it's had a product market fit or not. But B2B product, you can work on it for years, and you can probably just serving one customer.
Yeah, because it's like every step of running a company. Like whenever I do anything and there's like a minor inconvenience, I was like, there's probably like 10 companies that work on said minor convenience. Try to make that company's life easier.
Yeah. So that's why a lot of B2B product companies, either they do, they're very big, reason being they have a lot of buyers and they can have more power over their buyers, or they just serve specific buyers and one of their exit is getting acquired.
Also, I feel like B2B customers are more like willing to help. Because my whenever I have conversations with my product owner or whatever now, he talks about they used to have a thing called, I forgot, Boodlebox used to have another product, but when they used to be B2B, other businesses were more willing to like pilot stuff out. They were more willing to like answer surveys and be like test dummies versus your random customer who pays $10 for your thing is not gonna wanna do the survey you want them to.
Yeah, consumers are very hard to help you out on this. But also in B2B products, the customers know that their opinions matter. So another thing is, if let's say I'm working on LinkedIn consumer, right? I conduct the interview with 100 users. Maybe out of the 100 users, let's say 20 of the users tell me the same thing. But whether I'm going to solve that problem to the 20 users, not necessarily, right? Because you guys might be just representing a very small percentage of the total population there. But if I'm a B2B product manager and there's one customer telling me to do this, I better deliver on time, especially that is a big customer. So also for a lot of B2B products, there are different layers of customers, right? There are strategic accounts, which are super big. They are the companies that pay you millions of dollars to make your business live. So usually whatever they tell you to do, just do it and do it fast, okay? Do it with high quality, whatever they want, just do it. But there will also be mid-sized companies. They are maybe paying you, let's say, lower, like 1-2 million or even lower, deals, right? Maybe more than 500K per year, but not enough to make that difference in your decision making. So you probably want to conduct a bunch of surveys, do a bunch of interviews, and to get the general insights of what they want, right? But you also need to make them happy. One job, we just talked about hardware product manager. One job for B2B product market managers is to make your client happy. So no matter you are doing this requirement now or not, you have to make them happy. You have to tell them that it is coming soon. Let me give you a timeline. We're working on this. And for a bunch of small startups, you probably don't care about their opinions that much because they're not even giving you 100K per year. But also, this number is relative for different companies, right? Now I'm probably talking about a mid-sized company. But for a startup, 100K is pretty good, not bad as your first customer. So if they're paying 100K, you better serve them well.
I found a lot of like their company website has a roadmap page where they just clearly show like what feature they're gonna launch in the following quarters or like years, and also they have like the customer very comprehensive customer forum that like they encourage their own user to discuss with them like with each other, and they also have like a feature requested like dashboard so their customer can like vote or like express opinion on like some most wanted features, so that it also like greatly helped the product manager to prioritize across a lot of like requested features.
If you have done sales in B2B, that is a pretty good thing to put on your resume to let you interview whatever role you want to have. If you're, let's say, there are two candidates. If you're a consumer product manager like me, or you are someone who have done B2B sales, now you want to go into B2B product management space, definitely the B2B sales have way more advantage than a consumer product manager.
Yeah, my friends told me like he's doing like B2B SaaS product. It's almost like sales because you have to communicate with like many clients. But I just have a question like it might be a little bit hard to prioritize like different stakeholders' needs. Sometimes one client said they want these kind of features, but you also want to catch up with what competitors have on their platforms. So I feel like this kind of decision is very hard.
Yeah, the prioritization is extremely hard. You have to have some criteria for you to prioritize. So at some levels, your goal is similar with your major clients, right? Whatever your major clients want, you want to keep the deal as well. So that's why how much money they pay you matters a lot. And how long you have been working with them also matters a lot. And also there are a lot of innovative ways for you to solve their problem. Not necessarily to build whatever product that they want. Probably some other designs or some other implementations also can solve their problems. So you always can have smarter way to solve a problem. Apart from the original Porter's 5 forces, these are very external to this industry, the technology and the pace of change. Not to like I don't need to mention to you guys, the AI industry is chaotic. It is brutal. The technology and pace of change is huge. Everyone, no matter what companies that they're working for, either big tech companies working on AI product or AI startups or wrapper companies or model companies, they will tell you that this industry is chaotic. It is very hard for you to keep track of everything happening. Second one is globalization. We also, back to our OpenAI case, we keep talking about regional models, right? Either OpenAI is not even thinking about growing internationally to the Chinese market, right? They're not even targeting Chinese market in any sense, because the global geopolitics is very interesting between the two countries. Government as well. And that's why when GPT-5 came out, you could see a lot of, American CEOs are saying like, let's support the American model, right? Do they want to say this? Maybe, but does OpenAI want them to say this? Definitely, right? So this is a very good marketing for you to associate OpenAI as your identity as American, your pride of being American. And lastly, social and cultural shift. DJI. Does anyone not know what DJI does? DJI is the drone company. So they produce most of the drones specifically for video recording. So if you see an influencer using a drone to shoot a vlog, that is most likely 90% of chance DJI. If you're seeing, this is something I found really crazy. Originally, I thought DJI is banned in the United States until I went to New York City. And I saw so many influencers just using DJI products. Either it is the pocket camera or the drone just flying like on Fifth Avenue. It's crazy. The penetration is crazy. So this is the DJI company.
Well, I guess the biggest one would probably be like government and red, because a lot of certain cities and stuff have banned drones, or countries. I know a lot of countries in the Middle East ban drones, like to even start with, like entirely. So big red one, because if you can't even operate in the country, you can't really make money.
And I found it very interesting that all the national parks in the United States ban drone, like any type of drone, which is
Yeah, wait, I also find that interesting because I feel like that'd give them like more coverage or like media coverage.
yeah. I guess they don't need that much media coverage, but
Or
it just
maybe it like messes with the ecosystem and like harms birds or something.
yeah.
And like, or if they break away and they fall into a tree and like a bear eats it and then it dies. I just made that up, but like you get my point.
Yeah, that might be true. For example, you don't want to just toss the battery of the drone in some natural places, when you're trying to protect that place. Another thing I think is they're trying to limit. Most of the drones in this market is DJI. So they're trying to limit their geographic information to a Chinese company. That might also be true, because it is very hard for you to limit what type of brand they're using when you carry a drone in that place. Third one is they probably do not need more reputation on the national parks, but the drones video images might hurt their tickets. So that could be one.
Oh, like the instead of watching it online, come and actually buy a ticket to visit XYZ.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Also, like when you think about the environmental stuff, like yes, you can allow drones in, but what one drone can fall down to use batteries that are like highly flammable, like a tree goes up in fire and then like, before you know it, big catastrophe.
But I guess it's more about intoxication of the environment because of leakage of batteries. That is a bigger problem, right?
I'm not sure about that. I just found that problem really interesting. Data is also something concerning. Also, I heard some of the national park has government facilities or military facilities nearby. So it is also very hard to tell you, oh, this is the boundary. You cannot fly there, but you can fly here. So yeah, I think they have very supportive reasons to ban drones. But it's just interesting because I don't think I am the only tourist thinking about using drone to shoot a video there.
Otherwise, I don't think supplier power, I think it has a low power to limit profits just because a lot of industries in, the world of suppliers can probably make the drones necessary that DJI has. So they kind of have like a lot of options, right? Technology wise, I don't think it's like crazy innovative or anything. Especially considering like if you go to like the Russia-Ukraine war, people are like making these things with like stuff they find in their backyard. Because I watched a random documentary by this Russian drone maker, and he still says that even though Russia is like pouring millions of dollars or like billions of dollars into its drone industry, and Ukraine is still like getting a bunch of aid in terms of actual drones from the US and everything, the best drones are still not Chinese drones, they're not American drones, they're not Iranian drones, they're not Russian drones, they're Ukrainian drones that people are literally just DIYing. So I think supplier power is kind of low here.
Interesting. I think also serve different purposes.
Oh yeah, they don't need to like kamikaze and like blow up 10 people, right? But like,
But yeah, that is I think I also watched a YouTube video saying that as well.
I think the buyer power is much lower to limit the profit than the supplier power. Because I think DJI has really high brand stress. So like as an influencer or people try to be a vlogger, they prefer to buy DJI as a really high quality and high quality product. And to follow others to try different things. And for supply power, I have a little bit disagreement with Hamzi because since DJI, like when they develop their products, they may need like high quality or specific like chips or other technology in their product. So they have higher standards for their supplier power. So in this case, the suppliers can like ask for higher price to produce some basic segment, some like important segments of this product.
Yeah, I do think DJI has power over their buyer and their suppliers, just because there are so many buyers out there. And the volume can give them negotiation power to towards their supplier and buyer, which is the same thing as Apple to Foxconn. I do think it is very easy to make a drone. I just think it is not easy to make as good of a drone as the DJI drone to vlog. My boyfriend even built a drone himself. Like, it is not like hard to entry, but you can't make one that is like very silent, very smooth. It can shoot you good videos, high resolution, all of that. That is hard.
I think globalization is like curious because I think the pricing for DJI in the States is much higher than it was in China. Because one of my friend has bought an Air 3 here, and it's a not so professional one, but it was like nearly the same price as a more professional one in China. And I think that's because DJI has like market dominance power so that they can actually make the price and nobody can say anything about it. And also I found out like DJI has actually built in the ecosystem because they recently have published a machine to sweep your floor, how to say that, and it's transparent. And a lot of my friends who have already owned a drone was like very attracted to it because they think that it's kind of technology and with like their taste of the kind of the new things that they should be put in their home. So that I think it's also developing an ecosystem just like Apple.
Yeah, I think they're launching a new robot vacuum, right? So this is a customer service AI agent, and it started pretty early after GPT time, and it has a superstar founder, Brad Taylor. He is a legend in Silicon Valley. So yeah, he is founder of Sierra. They're basically automate your customer service experience. So previously, you need to talk. You either just like do mundane choices to tell the machine what you want, or you find a representative, right? But right now, they can use a very natural language way to solve the problem for you. And they're very integrated with whatever CRM that you're using. I sound like I'm making an ads for them, but to make this experience good for their customers. So this is what it does.
Isn't this how like one company lost so much money because like they had a certain LLM as an agent, and then they made a deal with someone. They were like, "Oh, I want free XYZ thing."
Oh yeah,
This is
I
the
saw that
deal.
screenshot.
Actually, technology and pace of change will be the higher force to limit profit because anyone will come up with the tech because tech cannot be the moat here. People are working day and night to replace them. Rate of entrance is low because entry barrier is low. Globalization will kill it because someone in China can come up with a better price parity to solve the same problem. Buyer power can be a thing.
I'd say it's huge, high power limit profits because one, I feel like this is kind of sketchy. Like if I was a company, first off, this is your like only source of income, right? It's basically all just B2B. And also companies are, I guess, don't want really bad customer service. It's kind of important. Like that's that's a big reason why some startups like get a lot of brand loyalty. Like, oh, I called them and they instantly replied and they fixed my problem as soon as possible, right? And so they want something they could cheaply replace that human experience. And if they can't get it, they're not going to use it. So firepower is huge.
And government risk is also huge because in some places there have come up regulations that you cannot use customers' data for XYZ reason or cannot let them. But I guess as government or even countries start adopting AI, it might not be a problem in the longer run.
There could also be like a social shift. Like if you ever see like my mom on the phone talking to like one of those robot agents, constantly going customer representative. And it could be like the same thing, like, oh, did they give you your AI agent? Just ask for the customer representative 10 times, right?
But it is possible that you can't even tell.
Yeah, not now, but maybe in the future.
Okay, so you guys can stalk him on LinkedIn. And so I probably have his whole LinkedIn profile in my head. He started his career as associate product manager at Google, and he started the
Maps.
Google Maps. And then he went out of Google and created a company himself. And then the company got acquired by Facebook. So he then became the CTO of Facebook. And later he went out again and founded another company, I remember, and then got acquired by Salesforce. And then he was the co-CEO of Salesforce. And right now he serves as the board member at OpenAI and also does this startup on the side. You probably know that he might have some relationship with companies, potential buyers, and government. What about the company Harvey?
Industry of law is made in that way that a layman don't understand it very well, the judiciary part. Because if people are able to understand it better, lawyers would not have good jobs. It's like taxes. It is bound to have be more and more complex.
Lawyers are like the perfect target market because there's like the biggest ChatGPT users or like any LLM users just because they read so much documentation. They have to work on like cases that happened in the past to think about precedents to frame like their arguments or like the way they go about court. And even if you just work in law, it's just so much reading and analysis and everything. So it's like perfect. And so Harvey was like, wait a second, there's this ginormous industry and they all use it already, so why don't we specialize it? And so there you go.
Yeah, I do think legal and like healthcare, this type of industry is extremely hard to entry. And these are also very traditional and low-paced industry. When they adopt one product, it is very hard for them to make another decision to switch to another product. So yeah, there are a lot of opportunities in for AI products in these industries.
In this kind of like AI agent with expertise, it's just like how programmers do with vibe coding. Most people would agree with that, though AI do help a lot on the specific correction or the or big like big programs, we still need like expertise programmers to fix all the problems caused by AI. So I was just wondering if a real professional lawyer would think that this tool is helpful.
I think it depends on what law they are practicing. For some of the laws, there might be more nuances, and for some of them, there might be more common sense and common cases. I think it is the same with coding. If there is a lot of information on the internet for you to train AI, then your capability in that area might be higher than some of the niche areas. So, yeah.
I feel like Harvey set out to like fix a lot of those problems or mitigate them because before Harvey was like a big thing or bigger than it was now. Like you had those situations. I'm pretty sure there was a lawyer in this big case. I studied it in one of my classes and it was really funny. We were talking about the effects of AI on society. And he basically used a case, right? In court that didn't exist because his AI like hallucinated. And he was just like, oh, based off this case I just cited where this and this happened, right? This provides precedent that XYZ, blah, 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 whatever he was arguing. And basically the entire case didn't exist whatsoever. It was all hallucinated. And then he like lost his job. So that Harvey set out to like stop that thing from happening, right? And to stop being like a boogeyman in the law space and actually just become like a useful tool. So they probably have like they probably trained their they probably train stuff on actual like documents because there are a lot of big databases that lawyers use and they pay like huge amounts of money to access all these documents and court cases and everything.
Yeah, they definitely, I do think they are trained on real cases. It's just even real cases, some of the areas might be harder for the lawyer, like as a job than some of the other areas. For example, for you guys as Americans probably don't know much about this, but for immigration lawyers, for example, the job for them is relatively easy for majority of us. And it's just some of the cases might be more nuanced. But immigration lawyer is very well known for being paid not bad and do nothing.
Technology and pace of change, I guess, as their first incumbent, and they are with the big laws and big size firms, they are going to have a advantage because there is something called as profile building of AI in your enterprise and as a user. The very fair reason ChatGPT has more users because we have built our AI profile in that. They are going to have a technology and pace of change advantage for a brief period of time. But eventually, if someone comes along, they will have a threat. Threat of entrance, yes, there is a threat of entrance because new people can enter into this industry because it's a data industry. And globalization, I doubt because two reasons. If I'm an Indian company building a replica of Harvey, I may not know what are the local nuances because you can help me find the right citation or the law which can apply to that incident, but I don't know what are the other nuances which come along. So, but that said, regional competition would happen. Supply power, uh, I'm not sure. It's very early for this thing, but yes, if my model is trained on a company which has a very, very good pipeline of data, then it will create a problem to me because the access of the trainable data will make me go behind in the race of making a great AI agent. Industry rivalry, yes, I guess it is going to happen soon. And buyer power, yes, because if I have a good data and if I can, because lawyers are paid on number of hours, it's like a grazing industry. More the hours, more you paid. So if I'm able to save 40 hours, 50 hours, it's going to create a more and more compounding return because I can spend more time on investigation and other areas. Means if I spend less on lawyer part, I can spend more time on the investigation part, which is where usually people have a problem in forensic and everywhere. If I'm talking in terms of government sense, not in terms of us as a customer. And government, I'm not sure if government would allow, but as everyone is adapting AI, I don't think so. I guess it have a lower power to limit profits. Threat of substitutions, social culture. I don't think so because everyone is adapting it.
Our analysis is based on data. So if you're doing
Yeah,
your
sorry.
report, no. I'm just saying like we have to like guess a lot on this class. But if you're doing your report, you usually have your evidence to support it. So yeah, in terms of like social and cultural shift, it's very hard to predict how much users are going to adopt AI in the legal sector. But I will be curious if I'm doing this like as a full report or investigation. I'll be curious what is the adoption right now and how is their user retention to start with, to think about whether I have early evidence to prove that users have the potential to adopting this technology in this industry. But I do have some like conversations with lawyers these days about their adoption on AI because I'm curious. And a lot of them are not really thinking about an AI legal agent. A lot of them are thinking about whether Apple could have a better Apple Intelligence to help them organize their documents on Mac, for example. So in that way, like they are thinking it is already pretty helpful. I think right now, a lot of companies like OpenAI have this agent system. If they're on Google Drive, right, they can access and help them with investigation or like reading a lot of documents, retrieval information. So yeah, I think lawyers will adopt AI. It's just like whether this use case as a legal AI agent will work for them eventually.
We've
Like
been
The
saying
one
COVID,
who
guys.
COVID.
They don't only do COVID vaccines. They do a lot of stuff, guys.
I know, atorvastatin. I would say a threat of entrance is pretty low because the pharmaceutical industry is pretty fixed right now. And because by entering the industry, Well, you either do like do imitate drugs, or you either like say research and develop your own drugs. And I don't think in terms of like researching and developing, like I don't think there would be a lot of potential competitors who will be capable to enter, because it's time consuming and resource consuming and money consuming. So yeah, so I would say threat of entrance and threat of substitutions would be low to moderate, depends on if you would include companies who just like imitate after your drugs. I think buyer power is relatively low, because say some drugs only say Pfizer or a few pharmaceutical companies are providing. And if you get sick, then you have to use certain drugs, then you don't really have a choice. So yeah, I would say buyer power is low too. Supplier power, I don't know a lot about like chemicals or molecules or pharmaceutical suppliers, so I guess I'll skip. And technology and pace of change, I would say it's moderate to high, because again, it's time consuming, and it often takes years and billions of dollars to just like develop a drug. And globalization, I think globalization will be moderate to high too, because in some countries, because like say the first is regulations, whether kids, if you want to enter a certain country, you have to go through all the like approvals every single time. And some countries say like the rights are not, the intellectual properties are not protected. And government, I would say moderate to high too, because they can literally determine if like the drug you spent like several years and billions of money developing would actually be able to go to the market. Yeah, and social and cultural shifts, I would think it's low, because I mean, even there are people who are like against drugs or against vaccines and stuff like that, but like most people, or like the majority of people, if they get sick when they need to like take a drug, they just have to.
Something which they are very good at is government, and social and cultural shift is creating a lot of issue, created a lot of issue during COVID, because people realized what are the disadvantages of it. But this is this is company is a one of the biggest case study from last 5 years, I guess.
They are a very
Um,
technology-driven company. Previously, I went
yes.
to Johns Hopkins University for a lecture, and there's another speaker who is the head of AI at Pfizer. 2024, early 2024, we were talking about April 2024. At that time, she already told me that it is proven that AI could fasten their drug development process, drug discovery process. And that is very early for healthcare industry to move that fast. And she doesn't have any question about whether they should adopt AI. She just have question about how fast they can adopt AI. Yeah, I think they move pretty fast and they're very technology driven.
If anyone wants to build a career in AI, I guess biotech and companies like Pfizer are good to place. Why? Because two things. They adopt AI they will adopt AI faster than any other industries, because data was always stored in a very best way. Second, they are slow moving because they are very related to the hard tech part. And third, as humans are evolving, the rate at which viruses are evolving is faster. But due to AI, the antibiotics can also evolve at a faster rate. So there will always be the race with the biology. And more diseases will come, and Pfizer will always have a problem to solve.
Yeah, agree. I previously read a book about VC, and the book is called VC, if anyone is interested. I think the full name of the book is called VC and American History, something like that. So to tell you guys about like VC industry and how it started in the United States, and how the VC in the United States specifically are pretty like forward thinking than the rest of the world. I just know from that book. So originally, like VC started from like well industry, right? Because when you hunt a well, the risk is very high, but the return on investment is also very high. So it's a very experience-based investment. So you see what type of people can hunt a well, and you give money to that person. But later on, biotech is actually one of the waves in the VC world to lead the technology-driven capital. So, and Genentech is one of the companies that I think made the name either Greylock or KP. I forgot which VC firm. But because of the return on investment on Genentech, investing in biotech or like investing in technology as a moat type of company is becoming more and more popular, which is a very interesting industry knowledge. Wyze Camera. Now I'm talking about my previous internship company. So some information about Wyze, right? They push their margin really low. So they sell a bunch of smart home devices. I think they're still hiring, so feel free to reach out to their people. The most famous product from Wyze is their camera. So I didn't realize this before I joined the company, but their camera penetration in the US restaurants or like public places are insane. And I think 2 years ago, their camera just got into Costco. So right now you can buy their camera from Costco.
Technology and pace of change, I think technology involves a new camera and new, like more high fidelity. That kind of like shooting technology evolves. Maybe this kind of really cheap ones cannot afford what we need for this kind of monitoring camera. So maybe people will turn to more technology advanced ones that is still relatively price competitive. Okay. And as for globalization, I think Wyze is only popular among the US, right? So it just only builds the local market. So outside of US, there are lots of competitors there. I think especially in China, there are so many cheap manufacturers who can provide almost the same product, but at even a lower price. It's just because the like global barrier that cannot go into the US market. Supplier power, I think, considering the higher and higher labor cost in the US, maybe in the future it cannot maintain that low a price. And for buyer power, since Wyze mostly do this kind of in-store inspection, I think most of them are for 2B. I think maybe in the future it can consider to like sell more to 2C. To install this camera to each individual's house. I think it's very popular now with this kind of pet camera who can monitor how your pet is going on while the owner is away. Yes, for government issue, I think the most concerning part is the privacy issue. Like for threats of substitutions, I think there are lots of this substitution for this kind of camera out there.
And the assignment this week, since we talk about competitors all the time, for this week, the topic is what is Waymo's competitive landscape and what should Waymo do to be more profitable? And I want all of y'all not to only think about the framework that we learned this week, but also think about the framework that we learned last week about what type of distinguishable feature that you want to build on top of the current Waymo experience. I think for OpenAI, their portfolio is very broad, so it is very hard for you to go outside of what they already have investment in to talk about new strategy directions. But I think for Waymo's current experience is relatively pretty basic. So you could still say that what they can do to distinguish themselves and come back to reputation. I have a second assignment for y'all to download an AI coding product and start testing it by writing simple websites. I will see you guys 2 weeks later.
See you, JJ. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, JJ.